so much for joining us today. We have an amazing career panel for you, filled with some incredible Sheridan alumni from the Personal Support Worker and the Practical Nursing programs. My name is Alicia Seguire, and I'm the Alumni Coordinator of Special Projects here at Sheridan. We're so pleased to be hosting this panel in partnership with Sheridan's Integrated Learning Team. We miss seeing you in person, but as always, it's nice to reconnect with you, even if it is through this new virtual world. For those of you who are graduating soon or have already graduated, Sheridan's Alumni Office is here to support you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us at any time. Share your ideas for events, ask us questions, and of course, we always love it when our grads share their great news stories with us. Throughout the panel discussion, we encourage you to use the chat function located on the right side of your screen and ask our panelists questions. We will be moderating the chat and we will relay any questions or comments to the panelists. So let's get started. Please join me in welcoming our alumni panelists, Ashley Griffin, Laura Dean, JP Maru, and our moderator for the day, Sandra Yu from the Sheridan's Integrated Learning. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Alicia. So I'm going to get us all started with the first question. So if you could each take a few minutes just to introduce yourself and tell us briefly about your role and your responsibilities, that would be great. So maybe I'll start on the left side of my screen with John Paul.
Hi there. My name's John Paul, but I go by JP. I'm a Sheridan grad, obviously, or I wouldn't be here. I've been an RPN for 3 years. I guess 2018. Yeah, so I graduated in August of 2018. I've been working in a variety of different settings in the community. I actually have a job where I work a little bit in an office space, which I'll talk about a bit later. And I currently work on a medicine unit in Hamilton.
Great, thank you. Laura, would you like to go next?
I graduated from Sheridan in 2019 and am currently working at Trillium Health Partners, Mississauga Hospital, on the comprehensive stroke unit.
Awesome. And Ashley, would you like to go and tell us a little bit more about your role and responsibilities?
What's that, sorry?
Sorry, I was, could you tell us a little bit more about your role and your responsibilities?
Yes, of course. So I have an undergraduate at the University of Waterloo in Recreation and Leisure. And then I went back to school for the Personal Support Worker program. I graduated in 2017. I worked with the Alzheimer's Society, and then I was currently working for the Adult Day program with Peel Region, and have since the pandemic been redeployed. And so I'm working in the Special Behaviors Unit in Spruce Lane in the Butterfly Unit in long-term care.
Awesome. So can you each tell us a little bit about your career story, how your career path took you from graduation to where you are now, and were there any pivotal or unexpected moments that set your career in motion? Maybe Ashley, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I guess I did sound like a little bit of a profile, but long story short, so I have been in restaurant and customer service for a very long time. I ended up going into an aquafit class, and I was able to, have the experience of working with seniors and listening to 1990s jock jams. Well, they were wearing flower shower caps, and I loved every minute of it. So that's when I took my support worker program. And since then, and during this pandemic, everything to do with person-centered care has really kind of transformed the way that I provide as a support worker, and making sure that I know more about them, and that, in their history, in their life. And that's how, that's how it's allowed me to kind of experience where I am at this point in my career, and just giving them the best of myself, and being authentic in the way that I provide care.
Awesome, thank you. Laura, would you like to go next and tell us a little bit about your career path?
So I graduated it was October 2019. Wrote my exam. I registered for my license in January, and then 2 weeks later there was a posting for the stroke unit. Well, the stroke unit was where I had done my pre-grad, and I really wanted to go back. I liked working with, it's a lot of seniors, not all seniors, but a lot of seniors, a lot of dementia patients, but I was never big on working in long-term care. So I just love the setting of it. And so I got the phone call for the interview, went in, and 4 days after the interview, I got the call that I got the job. I started part-time, and that was in March of last year. And by June of last year, I was full-time. So it was pretty quick.
Sounds like it. Things moved very quickly for you. Okay, JP, would you like to tell us about your career
Alrighty.
path?
Yeah, so my pre-grad was a little bit different. I was able to, there's a opportunity for students to apply for a pre-grad placement at the RPNAO, formerly or now known as WeRPN. So I was able to do a pre-grad placement there, and then when I graduated, I was offered a casual position there. So kind of working on some of their education initiatives and kind of helping with events and stuff. So that was pretty neat. And I actually started working there in a nursing role before I got my license. So that was kind of nice to have a little bit of money coming in while I was waiting to write my exam and everything. So I was just doing some, just helping out wherever was needed at that point. Once I got my exam finished and I got my license, I got a job in the community. So I worked for an organization in the community providing care in people's homes. That was a really great experience. I was able to develop a lot of my skills. I had patients with trachs and Foley's and everything, so I was able to just develop some of those skills and build some confidence. After I did that for about 6 months, I decided that I wanted to make some sort of transition, so I applied to a bunch of different jobs in Mississauga, Halton, and I wasn't really getting anywhere. I didn't really get many interviews or anything, and then I had kind of discussed with my partner that we were going to be moving to Burlington. So once I started broadening my search into Burlington, I started getting a lot more callbacks and stuff to schedule interviews, and so I got one at a hospital in Burlington and one hospital at St. Joseph's in Hamilton, and I ended up getting the job at St. Joseph's. So I've been working there for about a year and a half at this point, which I started off part-time, and about 6 months ago I got a full-time position on a medicine unit in Hamilton.
Awesome, thank you. So what would you say is the most enjoyable aspect of the work that you do, and the most enjoyable aspect of working within the organization where you work? Maybe JP, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I'd say the most enjoyable thing, it sounds a little cliche, but being able to make a difference in people's lives, but I really mean that, because we get a lot of patients on our medicine unit from many different backgrounds, many different stories, and just a lot of very unique situations. We get people who are have become palliative, and we're providing palliative care to them, but then we also have cardiac patients and resp patients, and so yeah, we just get a very diverse demographic, I think, and you're really I personally really have found the palliative care that I'm able to provide very rewarding. It's kind of, especially for both patients and their families, it's one of the most difficult points in their lives when they're faced with this idea of death, and it's something that we all live through, kind of that period of time, but it just being able to provide support for families and provide comfort for them, and that for me has been very rewarding, I think.
Thank you. Laura, would you like to respond to that question? What do you enjoy most about your job?
Well, like JP, making a difference in people's lives. One of my biggest goals every day when I go into work is if I can make one person smile, then I've done something right. I love spending time with my patients. I sometimes even leave late because I will spend all of my time with my patients and leave all my documentation till the end of the day. Especially right now with the pandemic, with the families not being able to visit or not being able to visit as often, and a lot of our patients being elderly and some palliative, some, with dementia, Alzheimer's. It's very hard for them to just be in this space with no one with them. So I just go in and I try to treat my patients the same as I would either treat my own family or hope that my own family would be treated. So for me, that's how I feel about it.
Thank you for sharing that. Ashley? I think Ashley's frozen. Oh, Ashley? Right, JP and Laura, are you also seeing that? Or is it just me?
I can't.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she can hear us or not. Or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, maybe we can try, I'm going to suggest maybe try refreshing your screen. Give you a few seconds. Okay. Oh, so maybe she just did that. So maybe, let me see. Alicia?
Yep.
Do you think we should maybe continue with the next question while we're waiting for Ashley, or wait?
No, let's continue on, and then I'll work with Ashley to try to get her back up on the screen.
Okay. All right. So, JP, maybe you can chat a little bit about what you find most challenging in general about the work that you do.
Okay. I find the things that's probably most challenging for me is just when I feel like as nurses, or maybe just humans in general, we like to control situations as much as we can. We like to know what the outcome's going to be. We like to kind of feel that we have control of what's going to happen. And I think that's one of the things that's most stressful for me. We get a fair number of patients who have dementia, a lot of different behaviors. Some can be aggressive and violent. Some can just be resistive to care. Some wander quite a bit. And I think for me, the challenge is just not knowing what's going to happen and kind of the stress. I even had a patient last night that can be quite violent and very resistive to care. And they're kind of young. They're in their 60s and they have Alzheimer's. So it's just when I don't know what's going to happen and I'm thinking about this patient that I have and I know I have them the next day and just trying to manage their behaviors and not knowing what's going to happen going in, that can just be kind of like more of, for me, a mental challenge just because I'm kind of thinking about it quite a bit and it kind of stresses me out a bit. But I think that helps me keep prepared for when I'm going to be interacting with and providing care for those patients. I kind of think about what I'm going to say when I go in, just because I know that I want to be as warm and inviting when I first introduce myself to that patient, because they're probably not going to remember who I am. So it's kind of like meeting a new person each time I go in. And so I think that's definitely a challenge, but because of that, I've kind of helped just reframe my mind and how I approach those patients. So,
Laura, what do you find most challenging about the work that you do?
I have two things that I find really challenging. When I see patients who are sad, or well, mostly sad, and discouraged actually, because they feel like they're not getting better. Because some of our patients are rehab patients, and even though we see the improvement in them, they may not see the improvement in themselves. And you try to do everything you can to encourage them, and just help them see that they are improving. And sometimes, no matter what you say, they don't see it. So sometimes their rehab can go into a decline because they're not seeing their potential for improvement. They're not seeing the improvement that they actually are improving. And then the other thing I find very challenging is when we have a patient come in that they seem like they're doing well when they first arrive, and then they all of a sudden take that turn and they don't make it out. And sometimes those are the ones that you spend the most time with. So as much as you're not supposed to necessarily get attached, you do get a little attached, even though you try not to. And if you happen to be there and you lose them, it can be a little hard on you at the end of the day.
Thank you for sharing that. So I see we've got Ashley back. Ashley, can you hear me? That's okay.
Yes, I can.
So I guess I'll ask the two questions to you. What do you find most enjoyable about your work, and what do you find most challenging in general?
I think for me, the most enjoyable thing is, I look back. So most of the residents that I work with, especially in long-term care or even the adult day program, they're in their senior years. I enjoy the most about getting to know them. Like I revert back to like my grandparents and remembering the fact that, like, at one point in time they were 25 years old, they were 30 years old. Like they used to go to the same parties that I would go to now. And so like hearing their stories and allow them to express themselves and being part of that journey and allowing them to tell their stories is kind of the most exciting part for me. Not looking at maybe the ailments or the illnesses that they have, or that they have difficulty walking, but like, or difficulty doing anything, but like I want to hear about where they've been, the people they've met, what they've been up to, and kind of allowing them to be, kind of reflect back on their life and be a part of that story. The difficulty, of course, is then I think more than anything, it's kind of more watching the families being a part of that support system, because I think it's really hard for the families to kind of watch the decline in a lot of the residents that I am working with. And it can be difficult. I want to be a part of, as I say, like part of that support system. And, especially with, the Butterfly Project and everything that I've been taught is kind of, we want to be a part of the journey in which they are now, especially when it comes to dementia or Alzheimer's. It's like, okay, this is a new part of their journey. So they're not the same person that they were before, but how can we be a part of their journey now? It's hard to watch the families. So I think that's more of the challenging thing, and just kind of rearranging how we're going to provide care can be a little bit challenging, but I think that's a big part of communication amongst the staff, so that we're all on the same page, and that we're tending to the client and who they are, and every day is a new day. So yeah.
Thank you. So as a follow-up to that, all three of you talked about some of the challenges that, and it sounds, like difficult challenges. What are some of the tips or coping mechanisms or training that you sort of fall back on to get you through and navigate some of these, some of the more difficult days, or some of the challenges that you see on a regular basis that would otherwise, if you didn't have those coping mechanisms, kind of get you down or whatever? Ashley, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think as we go through, especially with during the pandemic, like mental health is super important, and kind of recognizing our own strengths and weaknesses, using the resources that we have, and also using, relying on some of our coworkers to kind of have that outlet as well. During this whole thing, I mean, I have a lot of training through dementia care, doll therapy, pet therapy, music therapy, and just kind of, making sure that it's documented so that the next person in line, they can follow up with any progress or things that are working or not working. I think that that's super important. Is just that, it to be a part of that team process, because every client will have a different day at a different time, and so knowing how to work with the people that we are, and working with their family members, can make it a lot easier for them and for ourselves as well.
Okay, thank you. Laura, any thoughts on tips, coping mechanisms, training that you've used to help you navigate some of the challenging days?
Reminding myself to step back and take a breath is one of the big ones, especially when I'm in it. Talking to my coworkers while I'm at work, sometimes they have little tips or whatever for me to help make it through. And then when I'm at home, I do a little bit of meditation on my own, just to help reset, kind of. And I have one coworker from work that usually we do like event session for like an hour after we finish our shifts, like the first day we have off. And usually if there was something that was bothering us, whether it was something that was happening with the patients or something that was happening with somebody we work with, we just vent it out, get it off our chest, and it really helps. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And JP?
So I think the thing for my specific situation in dealing with patients and not knowing how to control situations would be the GPA training that I believe the Sheridan program still has. For me, that's just really worked wonders, because it's based off of like research and seeing kind of how patients react to certain approaches, and I really think the training that I had in GPA really helped me just manage these situations, trying to gain a little bit of control by kind of tailoring my care towards helping these patients and having them receptive to the care that I'm providing, and I've really noticed that recently, especially just that I'm developing those skills, and yeah, I think that's what's helped me the most.
Great, thank you. So my next question is about the pandemic and the impact it has had on your work and the industry as a whole. So what are some of the challenges that students and graduates should be prepared for, and maybe that you found surprising or unexpected when you first experienced it in your own role? JP, we'll start with you.
Okay. So the pandemic has a number of different challenges. I think the thing that the pandemic, the thing that made the pandemic most difficult for me is a lot of the policies that we're having to follow now that just kind of throw a wrench into kind of our previous kind of plans, I guess. Like we had kind of a routine before the pandemic, and things have just changed quite a bit, from things like PPE policies, isolation policies. So I was saying to the group before we came for this session with Laura and Ashley, just putting PPE on all day. I have 5 patients. If I have 3 patients and I'm having to go into these patients' rooms multiple times a day, I have to put on PPE, take off PPE. If I forget something that I need at that moment, I have to take all the PPE off, go get that one thing, come back. You get really good at not forgetting to bring things in the room after a little while. some of the policies that have to do with patient isolation. So if they come from a facility that has had an outbreak, they have to be on isolation for 2 weeks, even if they've had 2 negative COVID tests. If they're going back to a facility, they have to have a negative COVID test. If they're on isolation precautions, they aren't allowed to have visitors, so that can be difficult for patients and their families. Families often call quite a bit more and ask for an update. Also, oftentimes family members are ones that are helping us in certain areas. I have a lot of patients who have they need to be fed, so they're total feeds. So families often help feed patients. And if they're not there, the nurses have to do that, which just adds a lot of time to our day. So I think it's just the little things that it's not anything like the pandemic has just kind of added kind of these little policies that kind of have big implications and kind of add a lot of work to what we already do.
Thank you. Laura, your thoughts?
I have a lot of the same things as JP, like with the new policies that have been brought in that we have to follow. The wearing the masks 12 hours a day at the very beginning, that was pretty hard. I want to say it's getting easier, but some days it is, some days it isn't. Especially when you have to wear it all day. And then if you take the bus, you have to wear it on the bus. And if it's an hour bus ride, so then you're wearing it for an extra hour there, an extra hour home. Probably one of the biggest challenges, our unit was on outbreak. And with 52 beds, that took us almost a month to clear. We ended up having to split the unit off into a clean side and a dirty side. And every single room was treated as an isolation room. So if you had 6 patients at night, or 7, every single room you had to wear PPE. So you had to full on get up to go in. And like JP said, if you forget something, then you've got to, if nobody's around, you've got to take it all off, put it all back on to go back in. And daytime, same thing, which at night we tend to have less staff. So tends to be less people around. So if you forget something, you're more than likely taking it off. During the day, there's more people around to maybe hand you what you're looking for. So it's not as bad, but still it's a lot. And yeah, that was probably the hardest thing so far in this pandemic, was being on outbreak. And by the end of it, like our unit, the one side of it I think we had 9 patients left on one side because we were not admitting on that side. So once we would discharge a patient, that bed became blocked until we were out of outbreak, because we didn't want to risk bringing somebody new in and having to start all over again. So those days got really slow. But yeah.
Wow, sounds like it's been very challenging. What do you anticipate the future will look like in the next year and a half?
In the next year, I don't really see much difference if the pandemic in the outside world continues to go the way it's going. Because as long as it's like that out there, it's going to stay the way it is for us for as long and longer after the pandemic either slows, or I don't think it's ever going to go away personally, but they'll get a handle on it maybe, but it'll still take time before we get anywhere close to being back to normal. So,
JP, any thoughts? Any additional thoughts?
I would agree with Laura. I think the next year is going to be pretty similar to the year that we've been having. A lot of PPE is in my future, I think.
Get used to the color yellow.
Yeah, exactly.
So for those students who are about to launch their careers in healthcare and are interested in getting into work that's similar to what you're doing, or even actually working in applying to an opportunity at your organization, what advice do you have for them? Like in terms of, first of all, in terms of finding the opportunities, like how to go about finding these opportunities and how to go about navigating that first little bit when they just get started in their career. JP, we'll start with you.
Okay. So I'd say try to stand out as best you can. Engage in extracurriculars, take some extra courses if you have time, and I think it's important to make sure that you're taking advantage of this time when you have just graduated, but you don't quite have your license yet. You have some time to kind of just, I would first say, take some time to relax because you deserve it. But once you've taken that time and you feel like you've had some time to decompress after all the studying you've done, I think it's important to utilize that time wisely. And the job market's quite competitive for RPNs, so I think it's important to make sure that you're kind of building your resume, continuing to highlight those strengths and build on those strengths as well.
Thank you. I see, Ashley, you're back, so I'm going to loop back to Ashley and then return to Laura momentarily. Ashley, so what are some of the challenges that you, in terms of, we were talking about the pandemic earlier, right? And what are some of the challenges that you think students and graduates should be prepared for, and what have been some of those challenges that were kind of unexpected for you?
Yeah, first, I just want to apologize. I'm sorry. I don't know why. It just seems to like kick me out and then I have to try and get back in. So I do apologize. I will definitely agree that during this pandemic, trying to figure out software and virtual learning is crazy for me. I'm not very good at it. But yeah, I mean, for students, some of the unexpected things, I think that it's such a good... I wouldn't say a challenge. We have so many doors that have opened. There's been so many conversations that have happened about the importance of, personal support worker staff, nursing staff, RPNs. I think that this is a really good time for us to kind of, highlight those and the importance of these roles. So the challenges would be, as I say, it would be online virtual learning. It's hard. It's a hands-on job most of the time, what we're doing through this role. And so I think that would be more of a challenge, but I think also I don't know, I want to say challenge accepted. It's about time that we get some recognition in this field. Yeah, I mean, keeping up to date as I got kicked out 3 times with going through all this. But yeah, I mean, I think that a big part of it is just ongoing learning, being available, putting yourself out there and just allowing yourself to be a part of this process. There's a lot of people that need us in this field. So the more that we're available, then the better we can provide ourselves in this industry. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, I think I'll stay with you on the next follow-up question I asked to JP is what advice would you give to students who are about to launch their careers in healthcare and want to do what you're doing or want to work where you work? What advice do you have in terms of how to find the opportunities and also how to, navigate that first little bit as they are just starting out?
I think I would say that anything that you can do with ongoing learning, there are all kinds of training opportunities between doll therapy, horticulture, dementia ability, pieces, you first. I work in the seniors community, so it's different, I think, from JP and from you, Laura. I look for every education opportunity that I could possibly do. And I think that has kind of thrived in my career. Having good communication with, my supervisors and just learning what's available to me has really kind of, the more that you are up to date in your in your skill, I feel like the farther you can go in your career. And so I would
I've got Ashley on
say
screen.
to, future, yourself, get to know yourself a little bit better as well, because the more that you know, then the more that you can give to somebody else. So, yeah,
Okay.
I don't think that, like, if you graduate, I think that, like, when you graduate, that's not the end of your education. I think that, it's an ongoing learning process, not only for you, but for the people that you provide to. So, that's what I would.
Okay, thank you. Laura, are you able to share us some advice?
I would say don't give up. Like, you applying for jobs in nursing, a lot of people, I didn't get that one. And then they start to get discouraged. It can be discouraging not finding or getting what you want, but don't give up on it. Keep pushing, keep applying, even if you're reapplying for the same things over and over and over again. Because the more you do, the more you show you want it. And definitely use things like Glassdoor, Monster, because they're constantly, I still get emails from them all the time on positions that are available. So, and that's actually how I ended up finding the job posting for where I am now. So.
Thank you. I think all of you touched on continuous learning and additional courses and so forth. Are there some specific credentials or training or skills, additional qualifications, even professional associations that you would recommend that students connect with or explore if they are interested in, getting into the type of work that you are doing? JP?
I think it really depends on where you see yourself going or where your goals are, but definitely some if you don't already have the GPA training that I had mentioned before. I took an IV and phlebotomy course. I thought that was a pretty good one. That's quite general. Yeah, and then if you're interested in cardiology or respirology, you can take a cardiac care course. If you want to go into emergency, there's emergency preparation courses. Yeah, I think it really depends on where you would like to go, but this is one of those points in time that you have the time to take some of these courses. So I'd say just kind of whatever interests you, and yeah, is probably what's best.
Okay. Ashley, you did talk about a lot of courses, leveraging a lot of additional training and courses. Can you say a little bit more about what you would recommend?
Yeah, so going through the personal support worker program at Sheridan College, it kind of highlighted the different areas, whether it be in long-term care, community care. I have specified now working in long-term care or in the adult aid program. I have had the opportunity to take the dementia ability course, so just understanding more about dementia and kind of the umbrella that covers. Doll therapy, Montessori courses, pieces, You First, as JP said, like, with GPA, I feel like those courses are always available. So just taking the interest and just, this ongoing learning where it's like, okay, well, if you ask your supervisor, I'm sure it's available, just to be more educated, I guess, in this field, because it is an umbrella. And so, like, the more that you can kind of The more things that you know, the better you are at this job. Yeah, compassion fatigue, medication management, first aid. I've taken all of them just because I'm interested, and I think that makes me a little bit more well-rounded. So I think any education that's available, take all of it. Yeah.
Thanks. Laura?
I really think they covered it. Whatever you can get, take it. JP, I took the GPA. I did the phlebotomy. And with stroke, it had its own like special training, like orientation manual that you had to read through and answer the quizzes, hand them into your educator. And there was also an online thing for helping you learn things like about the brain, and how stroke affects it, how that affects the body. So yeah, anything you can take
take
advantage of it.
I also just thought of another thing. So actually, WeRPN, the Registered Practical Nurses Association, has a lot of free courses on their website. So that's definitely a good thing to put on your resume. I've been told actually by my manager and my educator that was some of the things that stood out to them, that I was taking extra courses and stuff. And those ones are free. And there's a lot of them on the website. So you can always check those out.
Great tips. I was just going to ask, so in terms of these additional courses and training and so forth, does that come out of your own pocket, or does your employer pay for some of that? Just wondering is there sort of a standard policy across different organizations, or does it vary? Maybe JP?
I think it varies. I know the hospital I work at provides a lot of these education opportunities, and you can kind of apply to them, or like they have them within the hospital. You can either apply to them or talk to your educator about having some of these programs brought to the unit and offered on the unit. And then a lot of the ones as a new grad, you do have to pay for them, so that can be quite a struggle, especially after paying for nursing school. So if you aren't able to afford to take courses, which is definitely understandable, I think there are definitely a lot of other free courses that are also offered. So those are definitely good ones to look at as well.
Thank you. Ashley or Laura, do you have anything else to say about how to source out these courses and how much they cost and so forth?
I know, like with Trillium, sometimes our organization itself offers courses. Like I found one on dealing with mental health, like not only for yourself, but helping others. It was a free one that was being offered by Trillium. And I know I've heard other people talk about other ones that they've done for, like, say, upgrading skills, or say they're going to move to another unit, or they wanted to. They've done that through the organization. So.
Okay. And I guess, Laura, you mentioned skills. What would you say are the top skills that are necessary for success in your role? We'll start with you.
In mine, communication is a big one, I would say. Not only with your coworkers, but being able to communicate with the families on the phone so that, they don't feel left out, they don't feel ignored. Because we are very busy, and sometimes it's hard to get to the phone, but being able to take the time to talk to them and being able to say the right things, I guess. And then helping to keep the patients calm. And then just your everyday skills, like for me, our big ones are Foley's, NG tubes. We get a little bit of stuff with trach care, but not a lot. And IV insertion tends to be a big one on our unit too. We have a lot of people that like to pull them out on us.
I can relate.
JP, did you want to go next?
Sure. They tend to be the typical ones that I would say, like, you hear them all the time, but it's because they really truly are important. Like Laura said, I think communication is super super important, written and verbal, because when we're charting, we're writing notes, so it's very important to have the written communication there, just outlining all your assessment data and what you did, everything you implemented. And then you're also going to be talking to physicians. You've got your charge nurse, you got your manager that you're kind of liaising with. You have OT, PT, you have SLP in the hospital. You have you're just working with so many different people, and everybody's kind of has a puzzle piece that they're putting on the puzzle, and it's all coming together. And often nursing is the one that's kind of bringing all that together, and yeah, it's very important to have. I think time management is also very important. Our unit just gets so busy sometimes that you feel like there's just not enough time in the day, and you want to make sure that you're not rushing doing things, but you still have to work at a pretty fast pace. Otherwise, you're just not going to have time to do everything. So I think finding that balance of not rushing but still working at a fast pace requires time management, so that you can just kind of group things up. If I'm going into one room, I can do a few different things. I can look ahead. What do they have in the next hour or two that I could do right now? There's a lot there. So just kind of looking ahead to what lies ahead in the future, without going too far, because you still need to be in the moment while you're performing your tasks and stuff. But I think, yeah, time management, communication, and even ability to switch tasks, because you're as you're doing going throughout your day, you're switching tasks a lot, and you have to go from one thing to another to the next thing pretty quickly. So I would say those are the three most important ones.
Thank you. Okay. Ashley,
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
I can't.
It's okay.
I don't know what's
Not to
going
worry.
on. Every single time it's like I get kicked out and then I try to log back in. So I do apologize. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so I think the question was, what are the top skills you think are necessary for success in your role?
As Laura said earlier, communication is a huge one. I think just trying to be authentic in your role, understanding that, like, when you present yourself on the floor and like working with the residents that we do have, that you know, just trying to be as connected as possible. It's obviously a tough situation. I work, as I say, in like a special behaviors unit, so like understanding who that person is, looking into their past as well, knowing where they're coming from, and then just you know, providing the best service that we can. But you know, as Laura said, and as I've mentioned, like, communication is definitely the biggest part within yourself, within the resident, and then also within the team, is going to make it a lot easier on doing your job.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you to look back at your own job search and your own career journey. Did networking play any part in that? And if so, how? Ashley, we'll start with you.
I think I would, yes. I mean, networking is great. I think that the more information that you have, the more people that you know, of course, then it gives you kind of an in. But at the same time, like, the confidence that you have in the skills that you've learned, and I mean, Sheridan College definitely prepared me for the job that I'm doing now. So networking, I think that it's an ongoing situation. So, you know, it's ongoing. It's not, nobody's going to get you in the door, but the more that you know and the more people that you meet, then it's going to make it a little bit easier to create the career that you'd like.
Thank you. Laura?
I would say it definitely helped, seeing as how I'd done my pre-grad. I already knew the educator, I knew the manager, I knew the charge nurses there. So they already knew me and what I was capable of. But it was also going in and having the confidence, like Ashley said, to be able to do the job itself. And not only that, going into the interview. And for somebody like me, interviews are terrifying. I get very, I start tripping over my words a lot. So I seem like I might not be too prepared for them, but it's a general anxiety problem when I go into one. But I also explained that it was the manager and one of the charge nurses that did my interview. So I explained that to them right off the beginning. I do have that problem, and it actually kind of helped. Just having told them that made it a little bit easier but knowing the manager made it easier to talk to her too. So, it's networking is definitely, I would say, a big thing.
Okay. JP?
For me, I think at the beginning, networking wasn't as big of a thing. I had a lot of friends who were in nursing and even offered to help me get connected with people, but I don't know what it was. I just have this thing in me that I want to kind of. I don't like it's hard for me to accept help sometimes, so it was kind of hard for me to just kind of poke a friend and be like, "Hey, you want to get me a job here?" Even though in passing they might have mentioned that they could. So I found it hard. So I didn't really utilize networking at first, but I think kind of the relationships that I've been building at the places that I've been working and the people that I've met and have become stayed in touch with through things like LinkedIn, Twitter. I think those are going to be networking opportunities that I definitely utilize in the future, for sure.
And then, so just as continuing on that, JP, you mentioned you didn't really feel comfortable tapping someone on the shoulder and saying, "Oh, can you connect me to so-and-so and about a job?" What advice would you have for students who are interested in networking and maybe feel the same way? Like, is there a different approach to networking that you sort of developed and found helpful?
Yeah. I think just utilizing and not being afraid to accept help. For me, I know that's something that I'm working on, and I've worked on a lot working in the hospital. You got to work together. You have to be able to accept help from people, or else you're not going to make it through your shift in one piece, I'd say. So I think that's helped me, but I just say utilize the resources you have. If someone's offering to get you connected with someone, it's probably because they want to, and by accepting their help, it's probably going to make them feel good because they were able to help someone and they were able to get someone they know that job. So I think really tapping into those networking opportunities and the people that you know and whatnot.
Ashley or Laura, do you have any advice on how to maybe do networking a little bit more effectively now that you've been in the industry for a bit?
I'm the same as JP. I have a hard time accepting help from people, and I'm slowly learning as I go, working in the hospital, that you need to accept help from people, or you won't make it through your day. Like it is a very real thing. So.
And they'll return you'll return the favor to them at some point, for sure.
Sorry to interrupt. Building on JP.
I hear bits of Ashley. Yeah. I think we lost her again. Ashley?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, I think so. I think it might be a little delayed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
No. Can you hear
We
me?
can hear you.
Oh my God, this is so frustrating for me. Oh my goodness.
Resilience is probably a strength that you have, right? All of you.
Patience
Patience,
and
resilience.
resilience.
Good one, yeah. So you guys can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Okay.
Okay, great.
What was the question?
I don't remember now. What was the question?
Oh my goodness.
Would you take advantage of networking?
Yeah, sort of some of the networking strategies that as you've learned, you've moved through your career. Are there new ways of networking that you would recommend that students employ?
I think it's just like, for me personally, it's just trying to get to know. I mean, we spend so much time focused on our care plans and like getting to know our residents, and also like it would be so helpful to get to know the coworkers that we're working with, like what experience they have, the education that they have, schools that they've gone to, courses that they've taken, as we went through before, kind of like, you know, these online, you know, like free courses that are available. Just talking to each other and just kind of saying like, hey man, like, you know, what have you learned, or like if there's something that's available to me, has really kind of been.
I think we might have lost Ashley again, but I think she was talking about something very valuable. It's like leveraging your connections to learn from that, like sharing information, sharing, you know, I took this course, right? Are you back? Ashley, can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I'm recognizing that we have 2 minutes left, so I just, while we try to get Ashley back, JP and Laura, so my final question is, what final nugget of advice would you give to students concerning their careers? What would be one, if you could give them one piece of advice, what would you say? JP?
I would say just make sure to take time for yourself, especially during this pandemic. It's going to be easy for you to say yes. I think people are going to ask you to work extra shifts, to work late, to I've seen it kind of just a lot of extra shifts coming up, and even my mom's a nurse actually, and she's found that she's just working double the amount of shifts that she wanted to work because she's wanting to cut back on how many shifts she's working because she's partially retired. And she's been getting stressed by that, and I've seen other people get stressed by that. In the past, I've gotten stressed quite a lot, just from feeling the pressure to take on extra work and extra shifts and stuff, and so I'd say just noticing when kind of you need some time to yourself, and engaging in self-care activities, whether that's doing something you enjoy and going for a walk, or even if that's just having a day to yourself of doing nothing, or and watching Netflix. Like, it's those things are important, and they're easy to overlook. So I think it's important.
Ashley, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I got nothing. Can you hear me?
You can't hear us? Yes, we can hear you.
I think it's just a little delayed.
Yeah.
I know. I'll keep this short. Enjoy the process. It's so rewarding to work with people, and unfortunately during this whole pandemic, you know, we are the family that the family members can't come and visit. So taking that into account and just kind of, you know, giving yourself to them, and, you know, spending quality time with the residents that we work with. I think that's the best part about this job. So
thank you. And Laura, we'll end with you. Any final words of advice or wisdom for students?
I'm going to go with don't give up. No matter how, even on the job, no matter how hard it might get, don't give up. It might seem hard, but you can get through it, and especially with the help of everybody around you.
Thank you. Before I call Alicia back on to do our closing remarks, I'm just going to ask students. So this concludes our alumni panel discussion. So thank you for joining us. There's a lot of great employers in the career fair, so make sure you go and visit the booths. So just click on career fair on the left-hand side of your screen, and you can go click on each booth and go visit them and have conversations and take some of the advice that our alumni shared. Go have those conversations, ask questions, network, find answers to anything you're curious about. So yeah, take advantage of this day. Alicia, did you want to make some final remarks?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. You guys are all very inspiring, and our students always love when alumni come back on campus to share their great stories with us and your advice. Like, they can't get anything better than that. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And Laura, your kitty cat is adorable.
Thank you.
And Ashley, I'm so sorry about all the technical difficulties.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But I mean, what you said and everything was fantastic. So everyone have a great day, and
I'm still working on it. I'm working on it.
So have a great day, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.